It was 2000 April that we have opened the Africa office in Nairobi. When that happened, it was just 8 years since Equality Now was born itself. So it felt perfect, I think, to come down to the ground and start working more closely with partners. So that's, the rationale behind coming to Africa. Tonight we are celebrating sweet 16 years in Africa.
And yes, this chair that I'm sitting on is 16 years old. And now at 16, Equality Now, like a teenager, is energetic. We have seen growth. Now we're in 2016, we are 11 members of staff. When we opened, it was just Pfizer, the director, and myself. This is the group that we invited for the office launch. And we have many other activities that have happened.
And we have proven over the years that we do bring a great deal of added value, because Equality Now has the ability to connect from grassroots to national, regional, and international. Bring the voices of the grassroots up to the highest level at UN, for example. But I am so happy that we have also done a lot in Africa in terms of bringing and mobilizing groups around the protocol on the rights of women in Africa, and we played a critical role in that process. At the time when the advocacy for the protocol was at a critical stage, we jumped in to support ongoing efforts. I feel satisfied that I did not come and say this is what we'll do, how we'll do. Even the approach that Equality Now has been doing campaigns may be different also in Africa, the way we do it, because we started engaging at the AU level. Bonachet, for example, from Ethiopia, has suffered and didn't get justice in our country. And just last March, finally, after a long journey, she got justice through the African Commission on Human and People's Rights. And it is gratifying, then you feel like every step you took, or sleepless nights you had has paid off. We started supporting groups in Uganda on land rights issues. Also, groups were interested to get the resources for the work they do at the ground in terms of fighting female genital mutilation, which fits into our mandate. We managed to pull resources from different places to support about 40 groups across Africa. And by the time we have closed that fund, something like $3 million have gone into groups in different countries to fight the practice. And I must say, Kenya, being one of the beneficiaries, has we have seen a lot of decline in the practice over the years. We have clear focus. We defined our program areas into 4 now.
When Equality Now was founded in 1992, we did not have any country in Africa that had recognized FGM as a human rights violation. But because of the efforts through that fund and the work we have continued to work with partners in Africa, today we celebrate that 22 countries have banned FGM. Recognize it as a crime, because it is an extreme form of violence against women, and that is a great achievement. We only have actually 6 countries to go. And we have seen that culminate into the global campaign to end FGM. That is the Girl Generation campaign that we are co-founders of and members of, that seeks to end FGM in 1 generation. We have made great strides. The Africa office was opened in 2000, and we launched the Anti-FGM Fund. And this fund achieved the objective of ensuring that grassroots organizations access funding to end FGM. The grassroots and national advocacy that was undertaken using those funds has yielded fruit. We have seen the first prosecution of medical professionals that have performed FGM in Egypt. We have seen prosecution of parents of circumcisers in Burkina Faso, in Kenya, and that is also a very big achievement, in that the law is being used to protect girls and the law is being used to deter would-be perpetrators of FGM.
I manage the SOA Coalition work here at Equality Now. SOA is the Solidarity for African Women's Rights Coalition. It's 46 organizations working in 24 African countries to ensure that African Union countries ratify, domesticate and fully implement the Protocol on Women's Rights in Africa. And Equality Now has served as the Secretariat for about 12 years now. We've achieved near universal ratification of the protocol. 37 countries out of the possible 54 have done that. Beyond ratification, we've also focused on ways to ensure that girls are able to tangibly access their rights, and also women too. And how we've been able to do that is to reach a range of actors. So we've been able to work with governments, we've worked with legal practitioners, we've also worked with ordinary girls and women on the ground, just to ensure that we have a multi-sectoral push. The most memorable moment for me has to be last year in early June, when Sierra Leone ratified the protocol. We had been doing advocacy for several years to try and get the state to ratify the protocol. And we thought we were very close in 2014, but then now Ebola broke out, and we really had to think through our strategies in terms of how to get the state to really ratify. So when the news came in early July 2015 that had happened, for me that was remarkable.
I met this young man who was selling fabric in Mali in the market, and so he realized I'm not from Mali, and so he asked me what I'm doing there. So I told him I'm working with our local partner, to end FGM in Mali. And then so he started arguing with me and saying that, you know what, FGM is our tradition, it's a religious requirement. So what are you doing here to come and tell us what to do to stop our culture? So, but I didn't have enough time to have a discussion with him. So what I did, luckily, I had this booklet we have produced, Protecting Girls from FGM in Tanzania and Kenya. And so it had been translated in French. So I just had that with me, the booklet. So I handed it over to him, and then I also gave him my card, my business card. And I told him if he has any question, he can just write to me. And so I just asked him, just read the booklet. That's all I'm asking you. So after 2 months, actually, he wrote to me. And he was like, thank you very much for changing my perception, for changing the life of my daughter. Because I told me he had a 1-year-old daughter and he actually wanted to cut her. And for me, that was very big. I mean, it was memorable. I was like, yes, I've changed someone's life, or even his daughter's life, just because of a conversation in a market.
And I joined in as a finance person, but over time I have become a feminist in my own right. In 2014, when we were doing the campaign for Bring Back Our Girls, and I was pregnant, I remember, and I did the march to the Nigerian embassy, and I encountered activists and feminists firsthand. I tapped into their passion they had, and I loved what they do.
Equality Now therefore works to end such violation of the rights of girls through preventive measures and effective response whenever cases of sexual violence arise.
What is great is the fact that the organization is taking a strategy that is going to invest in a lot of dialogue with stakeholders. It's going to invest in law reform, and it's also going to seek to change the narrative.
Let's work with women and not for women. This is working with them so that they are part of it, they sustain it on their own, and we'll have a better world for all of us.
Equality Now being 16 in Africa is an exciting moment, but it's also a moment of mixed feelings, because as the name suggests, we want equality now, and yet we are 16. So what does that tell us? So for me, on one hand, I see a sense of frustration, because if indeed we want equality now, we should already have attained what it is we want to do. However, it also makes me realize that advocacy, especially where women's rights are concerned, takes time. Thus, we need to be persistent, consistent, and keep pushing at it.
Communication is very crucial in advocating for the rights of women and girls, in reaching girls, in reaching women, in reaching governments, religious leaders, and all the opinion leaders generally. So for us, we appreciate what communication does, more so what the media has done, making sure that matters on women's rights and girl rights remained in the agenda.